Season 12, Episode 5 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I'm Mark Bishop.
We are, of course, reading Allan Bloom's The Closing of the American Mind, this time finishing up the chapter we started last time, finishing up discussing relationships and his thoughts on relationships of all kinds, mostly focused, of course, on students, drawing his own experience from the university. But very interesting. I thought this section, I think, is a good conclusion, and he ties in a lot of what we were talking about last week throughout the rest of this chapter.
Yes, very philosophical. I think.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Morality.
Yes. You say
Ethics.
that like you're disappointed.
No, I'm just disappointed in life today.
Oh. Why are you disappointed in life?
It's just kind of oozing out of me.
Oh, that's sad.
Thank you.
Right. Well, I guess do we just want to jump right in, or do you want to explain why your unhappiness is oozing out of you?
I don't know if it's. I don't say it. I'm unhappy. I'd say I'm morose.
That's worse.
Oh, darn it. I will. No, I don't want to talk about myself, although I just did.
All right.
I wanted to point out that the first page he talks about. He says he's talking about how people feel separated. I think,
yes,
and are separated from each other. And he mentions, but a young person today, to exaggerate only a little, actually begins de novo, without the givens or imperatives that he would have had only yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, like, you're looking at everything anew, so to speak. But the standard, this is kind of an interesting aside, in my opinion, when a court of appeals in Missouri, is dealing with appellate issues on a bench-tried case. It means a judge has decided, not a jury.
Okay.
The Court of Appeals defers to the trial court with regard to findings of fact.
Okay.
Issues of law are called de novo review.
Oh, interesting.
The case, the seminal case, cited over 5,000 times in Missouri courts, is a famous case called Murphy versus Karen.
Okay.
That was argued and won by a former partner, now deceased, of our firm.
Really?
We have the opinion, Murphy versus Karen decision, framed in our conference room.
Interesting.
On our main floor.
I did not know that.
And in a room that was named after, we changed the name, named after the attorney, John Schneider, who argued the case.
Huh. That's really interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
I had no idea.
I learned about Murphy versus Karen because it sets the standard for, well, what kind of deference do you give to this decision of the trial court? Mm-hmm. In a bench trial case, they defer to the trial. It makes sense. I mean, he was there to see everybody and all that kind of stuff, or she was there. And so, kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
And the firm's still there, same firm,
yes. Huh.
and all that. So, de novo means anew. Mm-hmm. Like the author is making the point that these young whippersnappers are coming into college, and it's like they don't have any sort of family culture that says, "Oh no, you can't do that. You have to believe this, or you have to do these things." Right. And so you're which is liberating. Which he makes the point is liberating, but it's also not a great idea for a cohesive society, or for success and happiness, because it's like the old adage about a liberal and a conservative come up they're on a walk in the countryside.
I think this is Chesterton.
No, I don't. I think
with the fence.
No, I think it was in Festus.
Oh my gosh!
They come out to a fence line, and the liberal says, "Let's knock this down, so we have a free flow of people across the land." And the conservative says, well, "Should we find out why the fence was built in the first place?" Yes. Definitely Festus.
It's not the place.
Festus, Missouri.
G.K. Chesterton, I think, was the one who articulated that.
I don't think he was there.
Okay, sure. Because I like how he starts here, because he says, essentially, the students coming in have gone back to the state of nature.
Yes.
He says, that was a theoretical concept, proposed by these modern thinkers.
Yeah.
He says it's present not in rhetoric, but in reality, liberated from all conventional attachments to religion, country, and family that men actually did have. How would they live, and how would they freely reconstruct those attachments? That's what he's saying about, this sort of thought experiment of what the state of nature would be.
And now we're finding out.
Now we're finding out. And he even talks about later in this chapter, he says, well, even like the most aggressive state of nature philosophers, assuming that everybody was at war with everybody else, they still assumed that the family would be intact. He says, well, we've gone even beyond that.
Destroyed the
now
family.
Students are coming in. There's no family connections. They don't have any ties to their religion, to their ancestors, their family. They don't really believe in much of anything, and so they're entirely separate. And there's a quote in here somewhere, I think it was from Tocqueville, that he says later on, but he says essentially each person is the master of their own domain in every single way, and they're just trying to create everything however they want it to be. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different section.
No, you're right. You're right. It is in there. I can probably find it because I circled it.
Oh,
but
there you go.
You're going ahead, which is usually not what you do.
Well, I don't mean to.
I do think, I'd say a couple things. I think you might be overstating it a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe because even back in the day, because he's really writing this about in a time period I was either in college or just out of college, so I'm familiar with the era in which he's writing this. I think he's overstating it then. I think he's even overstating it today. Depends on the cohort,
right?
I think because there's certain like there is a huge cultural difference between SEC schools or state schools that are not considered elite, and then the so-called elite Ivy League schools, and
for sure, and
the liberal arts hoity-toity stuff that had great reputations, which are now in shambles. Because I think it's like it's a subculture. So I think he's right about that. There has been more of a breakdown. I don't know if it's as overwhelming as he thinks, but I would say he's right to describe, the effects of it, which is really that everybody has to find their own way, and without a lot of guidance, and people become miserable and separated from society and from each other. So, do you want me to find that?
No, that's right. I was going to say, because he says, this is talking about, the loss of even family attachments. He says, the nation as a community of families is a formula that until recently worked very well in the United States.
Yes.
He says he's really calling into question, like, will we have any political order at all, if this trend continues? I think in some places in the country, that's exactly happened, where you really don't have much order, much of a society really keeping things intact.
Yes. I like this quote, which is on that first page of this section, 109, towards the bottom. He says, the young want to make commitments, which constitute the meaning of life, because love and nature do not suffice. This is what they talk about, but they are haunted by the awareness that the talk does not mean very much, and the commitments are lighter than air. I think there's a lot of truth to that as far as the commitments. It's like people don't have that same level of commitment to each other or to God or reality or anything, it seems like.
Right. He's also making a very similar point to what we talked about in Orestes Bronson.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, because he talks about this is now really the modern sort of natural rights thinkers, natural rights in the modern philosophy sense. So it's really only freedom and equality are sort of the natural principles, and then everything else is just a man-made construction. He says the relations of king and subject, master and slave, lord and vassal, patrician and pleb, rich and poor were revealed to be purely man-made and hence not morally binding apart from the consent of the parties to them, which became the only source of political legitimacy. And he's very much arguing against that. He says, well, clearly, these relations have to be real. There's something real about them. It wasn't just made by a contract one day, and we all kind of just sort of agree to follow along in those lines, which is the exact argument that Bronson makes when we read American Republic.
The more I think about it, I used to be kind of vaguely in favor of the Lockean, that contract theory of government, that kind of stuff. But the more I think about it, of course, as I get older, that's not right. Nobody's consented to this, especially now.
Right.
Maybe, right after the revolution, if we had a plebiscite or something. But we've all kind of inherited this thing. What are your thoughts about his references to the herd and the hive? Like the two different types of... you look confused. The two different types of organizational principles.
He gives three. He says the first is the ship of state, which is one thing if it is to be forever at sea, and quite another if it is to reach port and the passengers go their separate way. Yeah. They think about one another, and their relationships on the ship very differently in the two cases. And then he splits that into two. And so the former case is the ancient city, the latter the modern state, the herd and the hive, which oppose each other. And I think he's very much. I kind of agree with that distinction. That the modern distinction is the hive, which by contrast, there are workers, drones, and a queen. There's a division of labor and a product toward which they all work in common. Separation from the hive is extinction. The herd is modern, the hive ancient. Sorry, I had those reversed. But I agree with him that, there is that distinction, that we've lost that sense of the purpose of things, that nobody really thinks about what is the purpose of the state. There is no ship of state anymore, I don't think, in modern society. There's no sense that we're moving towards something.
Well, isn't he saying that the modern society is the herd and not the hive?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I said no.
Opposite.
I corrected myself. Yeah, I said the opposite at first, and then I corrected myself.
Oh, I didn't hear the correction.
No, I apologize.
You should.
Well, because I read the quote, and yes, he says the hive is just that there is a common purpose, and everybody works in conjunction. Everybody has their own place, and there's a common purpose to things. There's the workers, there's the drones, there's the queen. The shepherd sort of view, on the other hand, is that everybody is an equal sheep, and everybody just kind of does their own thing, and maybe there's a shepherd leading people, but sometimes not.
Yes.
Yes. Well, what do you think about that?
I don't really like the. Well, I think both of them are kind of degrading to our humanity. Because we're not just a herd.
Well, that's true.
I just don't. I like the analogy in theory, just to make a limited point. We're not a hive.
Oh yeah.
Because those are mindless drones, and you're stuck.
Oh, true.
Literally, drone bees. Drones.
That is true. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the herd, is kind of degrading as well.
Yes.
But anyway.
Well.
But I thought it was an interesting discussion, of the differences where everybody's just going to do their own thing. But of course, in a herd, you don't do that either. You're still part of the group. You need that community to help protect the young, unless they're,
Right.
Usually.
Right.
But then again.
I thought this was interesting because he talks about, contrasting the ancient and the modern. He says, in Locke, paternal authority, this is on 114, paternal authority is turned into parental authority, a rejection of a father's divine or natural right to rule and to rule permanently, in favor of a father's and a mother's right to care for their children as long as they need care for the sake of the child's freedom, which the child will immediately recognize when he reaches majority to have been for his own benefit. There's nothing left of the reverence toward the father as the symbol of the divine on earth, the unquestioned bearer of authority. I think he lays that on a little bit strong, but I get the point that he's making, is now we kind of only think about like relationships in that way in a very utilitarian sense. In sort of the modern world. Well, you care for the children because you have to, but then once they hit 18, they're free to do whatever they want. And really the care in the first place is just to keep them out of trouble and secure their later freedom. Yes. And that's really all that the parent does, that the father does. But I think in more ancient terms, there's a very much more real relationship between those two.
I think I've struggled with this over the years, but I think the last statement that you read there, of course, I had that circled because great minds think alike. But anyway, he says, there is nothing left of the reverence towards the Father as a symbol of the divine on earth, the unquestioned bearer of authority. And I think the fact, I think he's right that there's nothing left of that. And I'm not thinking that there should be such a almost divinely ordained authority of the man, the husband in a marriage, but that there's nothing left of it. And it seems like, and there's a lot of, what do they call them? I
don't know.
Well, they're like the Giga Chads or whatever, like those podcasters who are talking about, you got to be the alpha male.
Yes, yeah, like the Andrew Tate types. Yeah,
yeah, and I don't buy into. Well, even like the religious ones. Andrew Tate is his own flavor, so to speak, because he's really a male feminist in his own way. Yeah, because he's like, you have sex with anybody.
Yes,
most if you're hot with me, no commitments except for or else.
Right.
I'm just joking. I don't know what he does.
I think you got it pretty much down. I think that's exactly what he does.
Well, I'm trying not to defame him or accuse him of crimes.
Sure.
So I don't really know what he does, but he has a persona.
Well, he openly defends polygamy and just sort of traveling around the world and just having children everywhere. So that is. But
I don't, and I would say this. I think he has a persona. And so I don't want to accuse him publicly, although nobody listens to this.
True.
Of a crime when I have no actual,
Sure.
evidence of that. I'm just trying to be careful.
Yes,
And also it could just be he could just be putting this whole thing on. He was charged in Romania or whatever, but they released him. I guess the charge is still pending.
I don't know.
It could be just his defense might be, I was just kidding. It's a complete act. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He might just be a liar. Yeah.
Yes.
But even like the more religious types that are like the trad husbands, that kind of stuff. And I think there's, I'm trying to wrestle with, because like, I don't want to say anything that's like overtly sexist or degrading to women. And it's really hard to go down this path without saying like I think on some things, or sometimes, let's put it this way, sometimes the husband / father, you just have to put your foot down and say, no, it's not going to happen. Or no, we're not doing that. Or this is just what's going to happen. But I also think that women have to do that from time to time.
Right.
No, you can't beat him. Like I know he did wrong or whatever. So there. But I think there's been too much equality where there has to be maybe in some spheres or some issues where there's a veto. Like I joke around with your mother about vetoing certain things. I issue my veto rights, and I've never really defined what those are in writing because I don't want to be limited with my veto powers.
Right.
But I just want to assert them anytime I think I'm right and she's wrong.
Yes, well, of course. Well, I mean, that point I've seen made before. I mean, among a lot of people, but basically, I mean, traditionally minded people hold that they're, men and women are different, and the wife should have different roles. Yeah. But Ryan Anderson in the book over there, when Harry became Sally, he makes the claim that really we've lost any sense. We really shouldn't be talking about parenting. Really, there's only mothering and fathering.
That's a lot of truth.
And I think that's because now when you talk about parenting or raising a child, it's treated as if, both of those roles are completely interchangeable and you're both doing the exact same thing. Yeah. But clearly that's not true. Right. I mean, the husband and wife do very different things. The mother and father do very different things for the child. And that's what he talks a lot about in that book. And we've lost that sense of mothering and fathering as two distinct things. It's all just been sort of coalesced into this weird amorphous parenting.
Well, it's a very feminine parenting too. So it really is emasculating the male influence in it. I mean, really, it's what it was. Like, oh, you can't do that. He's like, but you have to be nice. It's just like Patrick Swayze in the Best Bad Movie ever made.
Yeah,
when he is instructing his bouncers in Roadhouse.
Yes,
you know what I'm talking
about?
No,
I know where you're going.
They say, okay, what do we do if somebody causes a problem? He says, be nice. And then they said, well, what if he won't behave himself? Well, then you lead him out of the building, but be nice. And then what if he attacks us outside? Well, then you defend yourself, but you be nice. He says, well, when can we not be nice? He says, I will tell you when you cannot be nice. There you go. And so I think there's some truth to that, though. There should be, I don't mind, I think it's a feminine quality to be nice and try to talk about things. But I think there's a point where you're nice until it's time to not be nice.
Yes.
And I think that's a more male thing where you want to be polite, but there's going to be a limit to that. And then there's something that has been forgotten. This is not on topic, but sometimes violence is the answer. Yeah. And I know Jesus wouldn't necessarily agree with that, except for he did. And my favorite scene from the New Testament where he attacked the money changers in the temple. Right. There's no evidence that he maimed anybody, but he tossed over stuff, and it was kind of a violent outburst. Right. And so I take heart in that. And the Old Testament is still accurate. Right. According to.
Well, I mean, I don't think Jesus was a pacifist, like you're saying. I mean, that's where we get the two swords doctrine is from him telling the apostles, well, how many swords do you have? They say two. He says, well, that's enough. He doesn't say no swords. He says you have two swords, and there's the whole, building up of Christian just war doctrine. I mean, that's Christians were not pacifists. Some early Christians were. Yes. I think somewhat mistakenly.
Well, a lot of them were almost suicidal.
Yes. I mean, there was some of them were at risk of becoming like a suicide cult.
They did. Yeah. And they had a huge problem with people like, I'm going to go to the kingdom of God, kind of like the Islam has those problems with people wanting to go to Valhalla.
That's
something else.
That's like Norse, pagan Norse beliefs.
What do the Hindu people go to? Well, they just get reincarnated, I guess.
Yeah,
they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's a jip. It's like, what? Like, if I strive and do well in this life, I might come back better next. I get another life. Life is a lot of suffering.
That's
a lot of sorrow. If you live a long life, literally everyone that you care about is going to die.
Yeah.
That's like, those people that, like, if they're those movies, the fictitious stories about, like, that turn you into a vampire, you live forever.
Yeah.
And they're so sad and morose.
Yes.
Because everyone they cared about died because they just outlived them. What a horrible thing to have to relive.
That'd be brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. What a Buddhist. Where do Buddhists go? Do they go into the spirit thing or something?
I really don't know.
I tried to learn about Buddhism when I was in undergrad. I just found it really boring.
Yeah.
It's like, I needed some. I kept like insisting the books be more concrete. That's not what Buddhism is about.
I think that's the exact opposite of Buddhism.
I was like, no, tell me how it works. So I think I got nothing out of Buddhist theory because there's a lot of spirituality and that gobbledygook.
Right.
Anyway, back to the book.
Yes.
Relationships.
Yes. Continuing on. I mean, he keeps talking. I mean, he really goes into detail on this point where he says, the point that I was looking at was from Rousseau, not from Tocqueville, from Emile, where he says...
There's a quote from Tocqueville.
But there is a quote from Tocqueville in there. But he says, everyone has, quote, his own little...
Where you at?
This is on page 117.
Oh, you're ahead of me. Yes. I have a quote before that.
Oh, go ahead.
Skip that one, or we're going to delay that one.
Okay.
I thought this was really true on 115.
Okay.
Where he's talking about men and women and all that kind of stuff. He says, women are no longer willing to make unconditional and perpetual commitments on unequal terms, and no matter what they hope, nothing can effectively make most men share equally the responsibilities of childbearing and child rearing. The divorce rate is only the most striking symptoms of this breakdown. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
And I think there's I just think there is a natural difference on average in the amount of child rearing and child care that men are willing and able to do. And I have a rule. I guess I have a theory. I have a theory about everything. One of my theories is, and sorry if I offend anybody who's a really genuinely good person, but all Santa Clauses in the mall have something wrong with them. Because what man in their right mind would voluntarily have so much contact with strange children? That's like torture for like every man in the world. I mean, a lot of men is like, my kid on my lap. All these other kids on my lap. And the same thing goes for preschool teachers. If there's a male preschool teacher or worker or whatever, I'm automatically suspicious.
Yeah, we talked about that I think last episode, didn't we?
I don't know.
I think we did about how there are no like male teachers in school.
Well,
we were talking
different.
about upper education,
grades.
yes,
Correct.
and we made the distinction with lower education. No, it makes much more sense for it to be all women.
Yeah, I think they're generally pervs.
Yeah.
If there's a dude that thinks, oh, you know what? Instead of being working on the trash truck. Picking up trash, which I think would be an awesome job, by the way. If I ever get disbarred, I am getting a job with Waste Connections, and I'm going to empty trash all day. Yeah. What an interesting job. It'd be hot, it'd be cold, depending on the weather.
Yes.
But, you just go from place to place and just empty the trash.
Yeah.
Now it's all automated, so it probably is not that much fun. Because they used to, like, pick them up and throw them in there. Yeah. Put it back. Yeah. But now it's all. Anyway. Yes. By the way, almost no women want to be trash guys.
That's true. But yeah, I was going to go to the quote that I was looking at, but yeah, I think those were all good points.
117.
Where he quotes this passage from Emile. He says, I would even want the pupil and the governor to regard themselves as so inseparable that the lot of each in life is always a common object for them. As soon as they envisage from afar their separation, as soon as they foresee the moment which is going to make them strangers to one another, they are already strangers. Each sets up his own little separate system, and both engrossed by the time they will no longer be together, stay only reluctantly. He says that's really the mindset of a lot of people in the modern day.
Yes.
Is it's you don't have any sense that we're working towards a common purpose. There's no sense of a real relation between the two of us. It's just, well, this relationship is kind of beneficial for the time being. We'll reluctantly stay with each other, but I've set up my own separate little system. You've set up yours. And so for however long it's beneficial, we'll have some sort of connection, but beyond that, we're entirely separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the quote that he has at the last sentence, I guess, it's long 2 sentences. He says, people can continue to live while related to the dead beloved. They cannot continue to be related to a living beloved who no longer loves or wishes to be loved. This continual shifting of the sands in our desert, separation from places, persons, beliefs, produces the psychic state of nature where reserve and timidity are the prevailing dispositions. We are social solitaries. And I think that is 100% true. Yeah. And I think I think that social media has really helped exacerbate that.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can be so separate while still having some sort of theoretical fake connection.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Turn off the computer.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Go out, go for a walk and talk to someone. But then probably bump into me on the walk and be like, "Go away from me! Why are you bothering me? You weirdos!" DIVORCE.
Yes, he moves on to divorce, which is actually kind of a short section because he kind of weaves the topic of divorce in, I think, throughout the rest of this chapter.
Yes.
He says, divorce in America is the most palpable indication that people are not made to live together, and that although they want and need to create a general will out of the particular wills, those particular wills constantly reassert themselves. So on the same point, we are all setting up our own little system, our own will, and we reluctantly stay with each other. But as soon as our ideals clash, bam, it's just split.
Yeah.
Marriage, for many people, I don't think is even really a real thing to them. I think a lot of people just treat it as, I don't know what people treat it as.
What, marriage?
Yeah.
It depends. And I've done a few divorce cases. And of course my partners do. You just learn about a lot about people indirectly through the practice of law and all this other stuff. And of course, as I get older, it's like more and more people fade away. It's like a marathon, and I'm still in the race. And my only hope of winning is that all the people that have been married longer than me divorce. And I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer to that finish line where everybody else is divorced.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. Boy, I'm trying to think of how many people I know. Anyway, because you get married in your 20s. This will be a warning to you. If you get married in your 20s, not that you're going to do that, but man, there's so many of them fail, and I think a lot of it is this separation issue, and I love how he describes how. Children are told about, they're going to have quality instead of quantity time with each parent. And he just says flat out, but children do not believe any of this. Yeah. Well, that's the truth. And I think I think people go into it like you're joining a 2-person club. Yeah. But you can just resign your membership in the club. But it's different. A marriage is supposed to be different than a contract, right? Like it is a contract under the law and that kind of stuff, but it's not. It's you're. I think the Catholic Church has this 100% correct that you're creating something more, and new. It's almost like giving birth. Not that I know that about giving birth, right? But like creating, like when you create the marriage, it's the first part of having a family. Yeah. Well, you become something different, right? It is different. Your relationship to people changes. If you're doing it right. Yeah. And a lot of people have never even thought of that concept. And so it's just like going steady for reals. Yeah. That's what they think of it is. And then, if they're not, 100% happy, because you're going to go through lulls. Like, there's always, it's up and down in all relationships. And it's, you go through these lulls, and as long as you just, the biggest thing is, I'll give you the keys to a successful marriage. Okay. I have a number of theories. Number one is that you have to be loyal. And that loyal is like a capital L. Yeah. So like, and the guys, and I've noticed the guys that are not loyal in all words and deed will end up screwing up and cheating on their wives almost every time. If you have a guy who's getting married or has been married and he's like, oh, check out the butt on that chick, or saying something and have a derogatory reference to their, if they say that and connect it to a derogatory reference to their wife, they will get divorced within 5 years, 100%, maybe sooner. Yeah. Or he's at least going to cheat on her.
Yeah.
But because if you're loyal to somebody, there's one thing to say, express your frustrations to your buddies about your girlfriend or your wife, but you should never, ever degrade or insult your wife.
Right.
And so I always viewed it as, if I'm out there, even if your mother would never know that I ever said anything, I never say anything about how attractive another woman is.
Yeah. I don't know why you would.
Well, that's guy talk.
Yeah, I know, but yeah. I've seen other guys do that. Guys who've been in relationships, I mean, none of my close friends are married yet.
Right.
But it's like, if you've been dating a girl for 3 years,
right.
Why are you, scrolling through Instagram and like commenting on all the women you see? Why are you doing that? I have no idea why. What possesses people to do that?
Well, I don't have as big of a problem if you're just dating, because you haven't.
That's true.
Granted,
it's still strange to me.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like. The only time I reference favorably super fans of like the Cardinals, like those people, they're like, they know the box scores, and
right.
And if like a Cardinal player murdered a child, their first question is, how is this going to affect the playoffs? Right. They don't care about the child or whatever the sports team. So those fanatics, because they will never, the good fanatics, I had air quotes, will never criticize the organization. They will always be loyal to their team.
Sure.
And to hell with you if you're going to say the Cubs are better or other team is better. And that's the kind of mentality you have. You have to have that loyalty, and you have to, and that loyalty gets you through the lulls and the bad times, because it's like, yeah, she's being a pain in the ass for the last 6 months, but. But of course, you can break that loyalty, because if the other side cheats or does something really horrendous, that bond of loyalty has to be broken. It's like you can't save that.
Right.
And there's too many people that and I think part of the problem is the lack of appreciation of the effect of having sex with somebody has on you and your soul.
Right.
And so that's become trivialized. So it's not that big a deal to have sex. And so if it's not that big a deal to have sex, then it's not that big of a deal to have sex outside of marriage. It's like, well, wait a second. That's part of the loyalty. How do you have sex with somebody else when you're supposed to be 100% loyal to this gal?
Right.
You crazy bastards. Anyway,
I would 100% agree.
That's like the biggest reason that people fail in marriage, because they're not loyal.
Right. Yeah. Which, I mean, it just makes me wonder, I mean, again, what marriage is for so many people, right? If they don't understand it, because I was actually talking about this with Molly not too long ago. She brought up the question, it's like, why do super liberal people even bother getting married, right? If you don't think of marriage, I mean, as a sacrament for one thing, but especially if you don't think that it is this binding thing where you become something different and you're specifically loyal to this one person and it means something, which I think a lot of very liberal people don't hold that view, that marriage doesn't change you in any way. It's just something we go through. But they still get married, a lot of them. I think marriage rates have been declining, of course. I think for that reason that people are like, well, why bother?
Right.
But I was talking with them, we were just like, why? Why would they do that? The tax break, I guess.
You're creating the 2-member club.
Yeah, I guess that's true, yeah.
It's always better to be in the club than not be in the club.
Yeah.
So I think it's that kind of, it's not a trivial relationship, but it's not as significant as it should be. They kind of trivialize it. It kind of like it's the same kind of people that when their grown kids come to them and like a daughter comes to I'm pregnant. They counsel her, or they don't try to, quite frankly, manipulate her to not get an abortion. Like they support the decision to have their grandkids killed, are the same kind of people that'll get married without thinking it's anything different. It's like, God, it's like they're just been dehumanized. Yeah. It's like I think they kind of lose their soul at some point. I think those people are the top of my list for the most evil people in the world. The grandparents that tell their daughters, the parents that tell their daughters, it's okay to kill your unborn child. Yeah. Who does that? Yeah. Why? I mean, how could you not say, all right, we're going to move heaven and earth? Mm-hmm. This is a team effort. It's out of it wasn't scheduled like anything in life that's good is scheduled. Everything in life that's good is unscheduled. And anyway, so I just think they are the worst people in the world.
I think I can agree with that. Yeah.
I think they're worse. They're worse than they're worse than whoever the Russians are that are killing the Ukrainians. They're worse than the Ukrainians that are killing the Russians. You know what I mean? It's like, I really think they're just so morally repugnant. They have no code.
Yeah.
They have no honor code for their own family.
Yeah.
At least the Russian soldiers are killing the Ukrainians because they're trying to fight for their Russian buddies. Yeah. Some sort of honor. Yeah. I mean, as far as the soldiers, the higher ups are pretty bad.
Right.
But if you're out in the foxhole with somebody, there's a certain amount of honor for that.
Right.
There's no honor with letting your grandkids get killed.
I agree.
Because you've already had the children. I don't know how women. I'm on a completely separate rant.
Yes.
I don't know how women who have had a child have an abortion. How does it even enter their effing mind? I can understand. I really can understand a woman having an abortion before she's had kids. I get it because it's a clump of cells or whatever.
Right. You can abstract away from it and
100%.
Talk yourself away from it. Yeah.
I completely understand that. I'm not condoning it, but that I have a lot of compassion for and understanding for it and how difficult it is in the society.
And so many of them are incredibly lied to, from the very beginning.
But how can you have a child?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yes. Anyway, so what were we talking about? Divorce.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you had any other thoughts. I was going to move on to the section on love because, he kind of just keeps talking about divorce.
Well, I want to say this one thing. I love this. He says, of course, many families are unhappy, but that is irrelevant. And he goes on to explain why, because it's like you have a higher duty. And it's not just about happiness. It's about everything. Right. It's about the whole relationship. And, of course, due to your children and due to your duties to your spouse.
Right.
And then he also goes on this long rant about how much he hates psychologists.
Yeah, I did see that, yeah.
So we don't need to belabor the point, but, I agree with that.
Yeah.
He says, I love this quote, because he's talking about how especially psychologists and psychiatrists treat the children who then become his students. They're dealing with divorce, and they have this. They're supporting the ideology of justifying divorce.
Right.
That it's better to be not married than to be in an unhappy marriage. Well, that unhappiness comes and goes, man.
Right.
If there's true abuse, dangerous situations, of course, that's an exception. Right. But that is the exception.
Yeah. I did like his quote. He says, psychologists are the sworn enemies of guilt. Yes, I think that's very true.
I was getting to that.
I was just seeing that. It's on Twitter or something, but somebody was commenting on the AI models. If you talk to them and explain I have a problem with this, I cheated on my wife, whatever, the AI will always back you up. It'll always say, well, you need to realize, it's important that you recognize that you were feeling, left out and neglected and things like that. And somebody's like, well, this is ridiculous. AI is going to turn people into a bunch of narcissists. And somebody replies, that's what modern therapists say to a lot of people.
100%.
Just in general.
Yes.
And modern therapy and psychology is doing that same thing to a lot of people. It's just affirming them no matter what.
Well, I think that's what our society is doing.
Yes, exactly.
Across the board.
Yeah.
And there's only very few institutions like the Catholic Church are like,
there's some things are wrong.
You're supposed to go to church.
There's guilt,
and you're not supposed to put that in that hole.
Yes.
Okay? It's for a different kind of hole on a different kind of person.
Yep. I think that's the language the Pope uses, actually.
The Pope said, you're putting that thing in the wrong hole. It's... historically, that's been the case, and they've been consistent about it. I love that they stand for something. I think that's gonna, in my lifetime, they're like, oh, you have to be more accepting and all that kind of stuff. But I think the Catholic Church is realizing when they look around at the Episcopalians and Methodists and all these other denominations that have just withered on the vine when they made accommodations to their theology. Mm-hmm. They've undercut their own theology. They don't believe in anything. Yeah. So this is literally a social club.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not a great social club.
Yeah.
The Elks are wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't have to go in there and be bored by some lesbian preacher. You know,
At least you hope not.
You're not going to be. You might be able to meet a lesbian preacher there, but it's going to be at the bar and should be probably pretty entertaining.
Yeah. There you go.
She ain't gonna be talking about God at the Elks.
Well, speaking of lesbian preachers, the next section is love. And I thought this was great. This story he starts out with, he says, students very rarely say I love you.
Yeah.
One student told me that, of course, he says I love you to girlfriends when we are breaking up.
Yes.
It is the clean and easy break, no damage, no fault, at which they are adept. This is understood to be morality, respect for other person's freedom.
No, that's such a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he really is describing it accurately.
Yeah,
Yes.
I really was interested in what he says when he says students do not date anymore. Dating was the petrified skeleton of courtship. They live in herds or packs with no more sexual differentiation than any herds have when not in heat. And he goes on and continues there. I thought it was interesting that he pointed that out back in the 80s, in 87 here. I didn't realize it was if it was even noticeable that students weren't dating anymore at that point in time. I think the situation's gotten much worse now.
He's way ahead of his time.
Especially with the dating apps and everything, where now so much of it's just so artificial and you're swiping through pictures of people like they're, trading cards on your phone.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yes. And he mentions briefly on 123, he says, when marriage occurs, it does not usually seem to result from a decision and conscious will to take on its responsibilities.
Right.
And then he goes on about talking about the lack of passion, hope, of despair, and all this. And he says it's just incomprehensible to him that they don't feel anything. And he says, like in the middle of the paragraph, he says, similarly, why should a man or a woman be jealous if his or her partner has sexual relations with someone else? A serious person today does not want to force the feelings of others. And he says, I feel like I'm in the presence of robots.
Yeah.
And it's such an accurate description of a lot of people, and it's just so sad. I think a lot of guys fell into this trap.
Oh, yeah.
And well, the women, I think, fell into the trap first, and the guys are like, oh, this is a great deal. You have sex a lot more. And it's like, yeah, but then she's cheating on you. She's like dating 3 guys at the same time, and it really crushes guys' souls when they find out about that. And man, it's just so bad.
Right.
And then the women, I think some women get to the point where they can't really even attach emotionally or spiritually with anybody just because of the decisions they made and how cavalier they were. It's like, goodness gracious.
I thought it's interesting what he said at the bottom of 124. He says, relationships, not love affairs, are what they have.
Yeah.
Love suggests something wonderful, exciting, positive, and firmly seated in the passions. A relationship is gray, amorphous, suggestive of a project without a given content, and tentative.
Yes.
You work at a relationship, whereas love takes care of itself. In a
Yes.
relationship, the difficulties come first, and there's a search for common grounds.
Yes.
Love presents illusions of perfection to the imagination and is forgetful of all the natural fissures in human connection. Yeah. And he continues on that sort of line there. I think that's very true.
That statement, you work at a relationship.
Yeah.
And it says love takes care of itself. I don't know that I agree with the second half of that so much, because you still have to work at
There's certainly difficulties and everything.
But I mean, it doesn't just automatically take care of itself.
Right.
But because, like I mentioned, the loyalty thing. But yeah, when you're describing a relationship, it's seen as work. And I think that's why people get divorced, because they're passionate at first, and then it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I got to do this for that person. I want to do something up for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before you know it, you're like, I want to do something for myself all the time. So why is this person here?
Right.
Right. It's really depressing.
Exactly. It's, why would we bother having this weird little project we've constructed if there's no end goal, if there's no love that's driving it?
And then if they don't have kids, there's really no point.
Right.
Why would you stay married if you're never going to have kids? It's like, what's the point of that?
Right.
What's the purpose?
Right. Well, I like what he says, because then he turns back to, he keeps talking about marriage throughout all of this, of course, but this is on 126. But he says, the arrangement implicit in marriage, even if it is only conventional, tells those who enter into it what to expect and what the satisfactions are supposed to be. Very simply, the family is a sort of miniature body politic in which the husband's will is the will of the whole. The woman can influence her husband's will, and it is supposed to be informed by love of wife and children. Now all of this has simply disintegrated.
That's gone.
That's completely gone.
And I've never had that.
Yeah.
but I would describe, so one thing is like, after I got married and people were getting married, or younger people or whatever, I'd say you got to be careful as a guy. When you get married, within 6 months, you're going to establish the deal. So what's the deal? I don't know what the deal is. It depends. Each couple's going to be different. there's going to be a kind of like a division of responsibilities. You got to make sure if like golfing 18 holes of golf is important to you, you have to insist on golfing 18 holes of golf every Saturday and never allow anything other than the death of a close family member stop you. Because once you stop for cousin JJ's birthday party, then everything that is equal or more important than cousin JJ's birthday party is now more important than golf and 18 holes on a Saturday.
Right.
Now, I'm not advocating that people with men golf. That's a long commitment. And I think it's really a bad idea. And I think guys get destructive with their hobbies. But every relationship's going to have a deal, and so you want to set those parameters early, those expectations early, and then you got to stick to it. So, like if you wake up and you're like, I really don't want to go golfing today. Go. You don't have to go golfing, but you have to get out of the house with your golf gear as if you're golfing. Because if you can say, I don't feel like it today, then it'll immediately cause a question 2 weeks later. Oh, do you really feel like golfing today? Because you didn't go golfing 2 weeks ago just because you didn't feel like it. But now I really want to go to the furniture store and get a new couch. And you're like, isn't that more important than just you don't feel like it? Now we have something we have to do. Don't give it up.
All right.
This is not advice to you. This is to the listener.
To the listener.
I mean, it's the same thing applies to the women's side too.
Yes.
If you need to set expectations early on, because otherwise you'll be stuck with it for years, and it's like so hard to battle that back. Yeah.
I will say that I think in some groups of young people, this idea, this traditional idea of the miniature body politic, I think has come back a little bit. I mean, among the very traditional Catholic circles that I've seen.
I think there's a danger in it because I think
so.
I think so because even the more traditional relationships, there was first of all there's a division of labor too, and there's a division of sphere of influence. So like the women had a lot of control. And there was deference to them about raising the family, right? And so the men's sphere was actually limited in the household. But like with major decisions or like discipline, say, wait till your dad gets home. I mean, if you talk about super traditional, it was like ultimate decisions were the responsibility of the men. But like the day-to-day stuff, the women ran the household for the most part, within limits. But so there's... I think there's been a misconstruing of, well, I'm the man, you have to do what I say. Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like important decisions, and somebody's going to have to be a final arbiter if you can do that. But you have to. But you should know that if you're making a decision, you got to be 100% right if you're taking on that responsibility. Because if it blows up in your face, guess what? You can get I told you so for the next 20 years. And so you have to take that seriously. Yes.
In fairness, though, all the people that I know who are kind of like operating that mindset are operating the mindset of, well, it's not, I just command the wife to do whatever I want them to do or want her to do. It's more so like what you were talking about, that if there is a need for an arbiter of like the ultimate decisions, well, then that comes down to me. So I think it is. I think I'm hopeful, but
it's interesting. I mean, I think a woman. I think the important thing is you have to find a woman that is willing to say, yeah, okay, when it comes down to it, I'm a little flighty, or whatever the case, however you want to. Not that all women are flighty, but if she has to be comfortable with that sort of. That's the deal. You have to know that going in, because otherwise it's like, what do you mean you're going to say what we're going to? I don't know.
Right.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, and he kind of talks about the separate spheres here on 127. He says the inharmoniousness of final ends finds its most concrete expression in the female career, which is now precisely the same as the male career. He says almost there are two equal careers in almost every household under 35-year-olds. He says, and those careers are not mere means to family ends; they are personal fulfillments.
Yes.
And so now you have these two very competing impulses here, where it's like, well, now you have both people who have a personal fulfillment, not just a means for the family.
Yes.
Well, when it comes time to having children or things like that, well, are you going to give up those personal fulfillments you found, in the career? Are you going to, give up the promotion or whatever? If this is what you've been striving for, why would you? If that's become sort of the focus of your life, he says that's a big problem in itself now too.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's helping this get corrected now is people of both sexes are. Well, of course, there's always been this this thought, but I think the fact that we're a lot of employees are disposable cogs in the wheel.
Yeah.
And so, especially like women tend to be in the service industry, or serving others, or government work and that kind of stuff. And those are like the ultimate replaceables, you know, like in a way. I mean, they're important for the work that they do for those clients, but somebody else can kind of flow into that, and then you realize, wait a second, why am I making all these sacrifices at home to do what? So I could be the second vice president in the local bank branch.
Right.
I mean, does that really? What the hell does that even mean?
Right.
And so I think a lot of guys are the same way. You have to have a certain amount of meaning in your life.
Right.
And I'm hoping that economically we can get to a situation where it isn't impossible to have a one income family, because I think that's a huge problem right now.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of us are consumers and we're spending and all that kind of stuff. But I think he makes a really good point at 128 where he says, people are living longer. Women are living into their like 80s on a regular basis. And he says at 45, they were finding themselves with nothing to do and 40 more years to do it in, because they either didn't have children or their children are now grown and out.
Right.
And now they have nothing but time for what?
Right.
Especially if their kids don't have kids. Right. Your life at that point is kind of pointless. Yeah. You have to find a purpose. Yeah. And it's not just, going to the country club or golfing or whatever.
Because I like what he says.
People struggle with that.
Yeah. I like what he says, between 127 and 128, because he says, well, not only have we overvalued the career as like, well, this is a good replacement, we've completely devalued the household. It's like, no, that's very noble work. That's an amazing thing you have. He says, couples agreed that the household was not spiritually fulfilling for women and that women have equal rights. The notion of a domestic life appropriate to women had become incredible. Yeah. It's like, we just don't believe that there's any value in like raising children, which is one of the most amazing things you could do with your life and one of the most fulfilling things you can do. But no, you'd actually being vice president at the local bank branch is much more fulfilling, which I think a lot of people believe. And when you kind of spell it out like that, it seems ridiculous. But, once you're, in a career and you've been going to college, well, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, this is the most spiritually fulfilling thing to me. Why should I stop this upward movement in favor of something else that we've completely devalued?
Yeah, I made the mistake of espousing this, giving a short little response to a question to two of my staff members at work. They're both young ladies. And one's recently married, and the other one is, they're both young, and so one has a couple kids, the other one doesn't have any kids yet. And I mentioned, I forget how we got in the subject. I usually don't talk about philosophy or politics. You did, yeah. But they got me talking, and so I gave them my little spiel about, life is really. Well, I gave them the spiel. Well, I think I come back from anyway. So the spiel is everything and everyone turns to dust at some point. So, like all the photographs that you have, this is what I tell them. So it's really depressing. All the photos that you have in your house, eventually, and not too long from now, no one alive will know who those people are. Yeah. Okay. You can go to, there's a statue. There's a statue in Forest Park of St. Louis. Yes. And a lot of people don't even know who that is on that horse. Yeah. He's St. Louis. The whole city is named after that guy. Everything up there is like St. Louis everything. But people don't even know that. Then there's like other statues in other little parks of people that were fantastic people that did wonderful things, the things that almost unbelievable, and nobody knows who they are except for like 5 people in the world. Right. And they have a statue somewhere in town. I mentioned West City Park has a drive called Al Brown Drive. I don't know if it's still called that, but that's what it was called. It's named, or it's Al Brown. Might be the lake, but it might be the drive too. Okay. I don't know who Al Brown is, but he was good enough for them to name the freaking lake after. Right. And I know these things. Anyway, so I said, ultimately, everything that you do in your life, unless you create some sort of tremendous art or some other thing that lasts throughout the ages, which is almost impossible, because it almost never happens. It's my Tolkien, my depressing Tolkien speech. The only thing that will survive you, that has any meaning, other than some really unique, creative act that you make, is your children.
Right.
And I said the work that you do for this firm, really important work. We really help our clients. I'm helping people every day, and you help me help them, and you help them directly. But really, 20 years from now, there's a bunch of pictures of guys that used to be partners in this firm that are
right.
wall of death. I call it the hallway. It's all our deceased partners.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of those guys.
Yeah.
So there's I haven't met any of them. Well, I know, two of them now, actually, that have passed that I knew. The rest of them I'd never even met. And they're like,
yeah.
But I think I might have convinced the second one to have kids.
Oh, there you go.
If for nothing else, and for to ease the depression that I caused.
Whatever works, I guess.
But anywho, but I think I'm hoping. I'm getting optimistic sometimes. I was pessimistic earlier. I'm getting a little optimistic that I think the youth of today, teens and 20s, are realizing, and it's kind of like this. It's why we get such bad service now at like coffee shops and everything, because I think it's really become widespread that this is really shitty.
Yeah.
Working at this coffee shop and dealing with these customers, I don't want to spend my life doing this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first step. It's kind of like AA. First, you have to accept that you have a problem, and then you work through the steps to fix it. And I think I'm trying to take an optimistic approach to bad service everywhere by teenagers in the 20s because they realize there's no meaning in this.
Right.
Inherent. I mean, there is meaning in meaningful work.
Your work can be fulfilling, but it's not the ultimate
not your
end.
purpose.
Yes.
It's not your primary purpose in life to serving coffee at Starbucks and Festus.
Right. I agree. Do you have anything else to add on the
I think I've said
love section? Because there's one more section in this chapter.
Do we talk about love? Is that what we're on?
Yes, that's what we're on.
Oh, that was what we're on.
Yes.
The Eros, I didn't quite understand the difference between the love and the Eros. Is he just talking about sexual attraction, I guess?
Yeah, so this is like romantic attraction. This is going back to like the
You talk about Socrates and stuff.
The older, distinctions between different types of love.
Yeah, well, I did like this, if I can interrupt you.
Sure.
On 135, which I'm probably jumping way far ahead.
Right.
He mentions how there was a student who made fun of the idea that he would try to court a woman, like by playing a guitar under a window.
Right.
Like, that would just be absurd.
Right.
And so he says, the author says, the student who made fun of playing the guitar under a girl's window will never read or write poetry under her influence. His defective Eros cannot provide his soul with images of the beautiful, and it will remain coarse and slack. It is not that he will fail to adorn or idealize the world. It is that he will not see what is there.
Yeah.
I think that sums up his philosophy. I think he's 100% right on that.
Right.
I probably talk way too much. I don't know how much time we're into this.
No, but I think that's right. I think even just going back to the customer service example, right? I mean, where he talks about the purpose of work, right?
Yes.
Is if your work is oriented towards, well, I'm making money to provide for my wife and my children,
100%.
right? It becomes a completely different attitude towards things. It's like I want to put effort into this because this is going to something good.
Yes.
Even if what you're doing is really stupid and mundane, I think it just provides you with a completely different outset to life. Or outlook on life. And so I think it's the same thing. It's a purpose for life. And if you have a good purpose, everything you do serving that purpose will be better.
Yes.
And it's not that you're idealizing things. It's not that you're making things as they are not. You're making things more what they are.
Yes.
As he describes it.
Yes, true. Yes.
Yes.
Well,
I like how he ends because he brings it back to the university.
When he says the humanists are old maid librarians.
Well, he does say that, but when he talks about that, I thought you would like that point. But when he talks about there's no idea of what the purpose of things are. He says reciprocally, the university does not see itself as ministering to such needs and does not believe the mummies on display in its museum can speak to the visitors or horrors go home to live with them. The humanists are old maid librarians. Your quote is as I reflect on it, the last fertile moment when student university made a match with was the fling with Freud during the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
He says, because Freud provided like a cohesive outlook for
Yes.
people. And he says, well, that's just missing. The university does not have that idea anymore, that you have to provide some sort of purpose for people, a longing, some sort of worldview. Now it's like, I mean, we've talked about this many times on the podcast. It's just like, pick this class and this class. If this sounds interesting to you, maybe you'll do this, meet the base requirements. You'll have effectively sort of a white collar trade school degree.
What's the? I was listening to. It's kind of a boring podcast, but it was the Hillsdale Radio podcast, and their motto it was something like truth, something, and beauty.
Yes, I know exactly. I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, because I thought having something as simple. With a seeking of truth, something in beauty, knowledge.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Let me find it.
And I just thought, that's simple, and it seems like kind of a silly catchphrase, but really, that's really what the universities should be allowing you to study and explore. And you're taking a long time.
Yes, well, they have. I guess they have a different motto because their official motto is in Latin, and it means "Strength rejoices in the challenge."
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. But I know exactly what you're talking about. But it's something along like seek truth, pursue beauty,
well,
something along those lines.
There's truth, maybe it's justice and beauty or something. But what I thought because I take the position that there is something that is called objective beauty.
Yeah,
and of course that has been controversial my entire life.
Oh, is it the freshman pledge of Hillsdale?
What is it?
We pledge ourselves to the pursuit of truth, the love of the good, and the cultivation of the beauty.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
That is very good. So they say that in every episode.
Yes, well, that's good. That's very good.
Some are pretty good. But,
yes.
There was a guy talking about AI, how AI is not really like human intelligence.
Yeah.
It's really
that's good.
Just bells and whistles and computers.
I will just end with what he says to end this section because I think it's interesting. He's talking about Freud, but I think it applies more. He says, people found that Freud's know thyself, which really goes back to the ancient Greeks as like a motto for them, led them to the couch where they emptied their tank of the compressed fuel, which was intended to power them on their flight from opinion to knowledge.
Yes.
Know thyself did not mean to Freud knowing man's place within the order of the whole of things. It has long since that academic psychology has had any appeal for students who have a philosophic urge.
Yes.
And he talks a little bit more that he says, but it has no more intellectual appeal than do they, referring to the students in engineering and banking. He says, we must look elsewhere for ourselves. Where do we go? This modern psychology sucks. We don't have any sense of relationships. How do you know yourself in the grand scheme of things? And the education, the university is just not, giving you any of that sort of education.
It's kind of like finding yourself on a map.
Yeah.
Like well, I'm here, but here is only relative to everywhere else.
Right.
So you need to know your coordinates relative to everywhere else. It's just like, just studying yourself separate from everybody else doesn't provide you with any meaningful information about who you are.
Right.
Relative to other people.
Right.
And to God. And your purpose in life.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of my big problems with the linguistics field, which I've talked about before. It doesn't provide any sort of connection really to ultimately what language itself is. It's become this isolated system of how you model language and things like that, which is useful in many cases.
Right.
But you need a broader idea of how that fits into everything else.
Has there been a grand unified linguistic theory? I think you're just the man to write it.
I could try, I guess.
Well, who else would do it?
It's probably already been written.
By whom?
800 years ago. I don't know. The scholastics have good thoughts on language that have been completely lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suspect the modern audience is just waiting for that to be written and shared.
Maybe.
Well, who would have thought that the linguist in England would have anything worthy to read?
That's true.
That's true. Named Tolkien.
That's true. Wise words.
I've completely converted to his theory of the meaning of life.
Really?
100%. I'm now proselytizing. That the purpose is to be a creator.
Yeah.
Because if you're not creating something, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
And a lot of days, I go to bed, I'm like, I just wasted a day. I didn't create anything today. I haven't created anything this week. Actually do anything.
Yeah.
I created you guys, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what he says at the end of On Fairy Stories. He says something to the effect of, I don't know the full quote off the top of my head. He says, the Christian may now perhaps dare to guess that he may assist in the affiliation and multiple enrichment of creation, capital C creation, that you have something that you can add to everything, that you have these sub-creative powers, and you can do something with your life, and you can make something that has value and meaning.
I think that's the purpose of life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've not heard a better theory of what is every person's purpose in life is to be positively creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the worst people in history are the ones that are destructive.
I agree.
Destroy things.
Yes.
Like those boomer grandparents that I hate.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever advocated for the prosecution of women that have abortions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you can prosecute some members of conspiracy without prosecuting all of them.
Mm.
So I think there's probably a really good test case for prosecuting grandparents for the murder of their grandchild without charging their daughter. And I think that would be a great test case.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be some crazy lunatic leftist texting her daughter, "You need to have an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
This is really inconvenient timing for me." Like it's about you, you crazy lunatic.
Yes.
Given the opportunity,
there you go.
I think that would send a nice, worthy message.
I agree.
Love your children and love your grandchildren, for crying out loud. Don't kill them because they're inconvenient.
I think that's a good message to end this episode on, unless you have any other thoughts.
That says it. That's why I'm back to feeling morose.
Yes, well, that's good.
Came out of it, went right back in.
You sure did. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at ULMTD Opinions. I have been Adam Bishop.
Still Mark Bishop.